Welcome to Get Savvy, the podcast for business owners who want to claim back their time through the power of delegation, streamlining, and productivity. I'm your host, Teesha, and today I'm here with Jo, and we're discussing the benefits of hiring a virtual assistant.
Yes, there are many benefits of hiring a virtual assistant and some that you may not have even thought of. So we're going to take you through the kind of main benefits that we see because there are things like a big cost savings,
Mm.
productivity, continuity of services, the tasks that you've delegated being completed at a really high quality, things like that. So let's kick it off.
Yeah, cool. So let's kick into those in a bit more detail. So let's tackle the one that I think a lot of people have top of mind, which is cost.
Mhm.
So obviously there are quite a lot of costs associated with hiring an employee. And although the cost of a virtual assistant in terms of hourly rate may seem higher, there are definitely savings when you compare a VA to an employee.
Mhm. Especially when you look at it on an annual basis.
Mm.
So with and I'm probably going to go into a bit of productivity here because they really do like relate to each other. When you think about a virtual assistant and they say, this is my hourly rate, the first thing you're going to do is compare it to the hourly rate that you could hire an employee,
Yeah.
not realizing that actually the cost of an employee doesn't just stop at the hourly rate. There are holidays,
Mhm.
PAYE, ACC, equipment, all sorts of other costs that are added on KiwiSaver on top of that hourly rate of your employee.
Mhm.
And more often than not, you're committing to that employee a full time, 40 hours a week over the whole year as their salary. That can actually increase the cost substantially. And with a virtual assistant, you're not going to hire a virtual assistant full time. They're not going to do 40 hours of work for you each week because this leads us into the next one, the next benefit, which is productivity.
Yeah.
Because when your virtual assistant is working for you, it is 100% productive. They have their timer on only when they are doing your tasks,
Mhm.
as opposed to an employee who you are paying for their unproductive time as well. And I think that really shows, and we'll go into more detail on that, that really shows how actually, if you're only hiring a virtual assistant for, say, 10 hours a week, over on an annual basis, there is a huge cost savings. And in a future episode, we're actually going to go through in
Mhm.
detail with the exact numbers so that you can see the real cost of an employee versus the real cost of a virtual assistant.
Mm. And especially if you're engaging with a virtual assistant agency, yes, you may be engaging them for 10 hours a month, like you say, Jo, but you might be engaging them for executive assistant services as well as design services. And what is the cost benefit of that compared to one employee that is, doing one set of tasks and that is their whole skill set? You can actually access a bunch of different people for this virtual assistant rate.
Yeah, you'd have to hire a graphic designer and a
Yeah.
bookkeeper and an EA to be as an employee to be able to cover the three things that you need done in the business, right?
Yeah. And even if you are only hiring those people as part-time employees, again, all of the costs associated with that, that's holiday pay for all of them, that's equipment for all of them and all of those other things that you listed before, Jo. So
Mm.
yeah, it's really weighing up
Mm.
whether it's worth it there.
Yeah.
Um,
A laptop is a few $1,000s, but then you've
mm,
got all the peripherals. You've got the
yeah.
screens, the keyboards, the desk, the chair, the mouse, all of those things that all come into when you have to think about your cost of hiring an employee. And even if they're working remotely, you'll have
Yeah.
to supply those things for them too.
Yeah. And that's also tools and app costs as well. If you have subscriptions for tools that your team are using, that is probably per user as well. So,
Mhm.
yeah, all of those costs.
Mm.
And like you said, Jo, productivity, that's actually our next one that we were going to discuss as well. And yes, the productivity is huge. Obviously, like you say, virtual assistant, you're paying for 100% productive, and your employee, especially if they're 40 hours a week, they're there 40 hours, you pay them 40 hours. That's their break time. That's any unproductive time, that they're chatting to another team member, or, maybe they just don't have enough work. You have to pay them regardless.
Yeah, going to the bathroom, going to their appointments, turning up late, early, etc. That kind of stuff, all is unproductive time. And there are some studies on how productive an
Mm.
employee actually is. Some studies have shown that some employees can be productive as little as 25% of their day. Now, let's assume that actually most employees, let's say that there's more like 60%. But that is at the top end of
Mm.
those studies of what an employee actually is in terms of their productivity. And if you think about it on an annual basis, it makes sense because they've got sick leave and they've got annual leave that you're paying for. So that actually brings down their productivity rate. So they may say, "Oh, no, I'm working all day, every day that I'm here," but they are not working their leave time, and that does reduce it down. And, there are things that crop up for them in the day. They're answering the
Yeah.
phone calls from their family members, dealing with personal things, like the water cooler chats, the unproductive time where they're just mucking around.
Mhm.
They all do it. And so let's say it's actually 60% on average. That
Mm.
leaves 40% that you're still paying them.
Yeah.
So their like effective hourly rate that you're paying increases
Higher.
substantially when you think about their unproductive time
Mhm.
versus a VA where it's 100% productive and the time that they bill you and the total of that invoice is where the cost stops.
Yeah.
That's it. One invoice for everything that they've done for you and no extra cost, no ACC.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
and quite often virtual assistants will use time tracking tools, and you actually get a report at the end of
Mhm.
each month on what they're actually spending that time, doing. And so you can see they're always being, efficient because, yeah, they're billing you for 100% of productive time only. When they
Mhm.
take a break, that's not your cost.
Mm. Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, those we could stop right there. And for me, this is what makes me so passionate about having a VA business and businesses hiring a virtual assistant. Because those two factors alone,
Mm.
those two benefits, it makes it a no-brainer for a business owner who is wanting to free up some time. Listening to the previous episode where we talked about, spending your time on things that actually matter in your business and looking out for those opportunities and growing and leveling up your business, that's the stuff that you want to be spending your time on. So for me, we could stop right here. This is no brainer. Hiring a virtual assistant is a great option for many business owners.
Yeah. But we are gonna keep going anyway, and we're going to sort of expand on actually that productive side of things with scalable support. Virtual assistants, you're actually able to scale as needed, and that is whether it's an increase or a decrease. You might be having a busy week, scale up that support. You might have a quiet week, scale down the support.
Mhm.
The support will be there when you need it. And again, you're still only paying for the hours that your VA is actually doing the work.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, there might be times where, you have like seasonal work. So let's say your October, November, December is super busy because maybe you're a product-based business and your sales increase at that time. So maybe you need your sales support to be increased. That's where you can scale up your virtual assistant or virtual assistant team
Mhm.
and get more help. Mm, If you were to think about that in terms of employees, it's much harder to
Mm.
say, actually, I'm just want to like increase your hours for like these 3 months, they're going to be like, no, I don't want to increase my hours. So then you have to hire someone else, bring them
Mhm.
in. It's only temporary. You have to get them all trained up, etc. It's much harder to scale up and down. Whereas with the VA, you just ask for more hours,
Yeah.
ask for less hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a really good flexible option.
Mm.
And I think I mentioned this just before as well. Again, you are leveraging a whole team so that scalable support may be across different, teams within the virtual assistant agency that you're engaging with.
Mhm.
Yeah, obviously freelancers may be a little bit different, but those agencies, you might be engaging them mainly for admin support, but then you may end up needing bookkeeping or creative services, and you can really, really tap into all of these different people in a business again without having to hire all these different full-time employees for your own business.
Mhm. Yeah, to be able to just like turn on the tap for like, I just need some creative services right now. I need to redo my website, or I need to have some graphics developed
Mhm.
for like a launch that I'm doing. Um, Whatever things you need, and you have a agency on board with you, it means that you can just turn the tap on and off for different types of services. You might need some photos taken. That's all
Mhm.
possible when you hire um, a virtual assistant agency that has multiple team members with all sorts of different skills.
Mm.
Like Teesha says, like, how could you possibly do that by employing employees? Like, they are limited, employees are limited to the skills that they have and that they
Yeah.
come with. Yes, they can learn to do other things, but you're not going to get someone who's amazing at bookkeeping, graphic
Mm.
design, and admin. It's just not possible.
Yeah. And it may seem kind of overwhelming almost as well, thinking about getting a virtual assistant and then having all of these different types of people helping you in your business. But your virtual assistant will work with you to make it as easy as possible. And it's likely that you will still just have one main point of contact with the agency that you're engaging with.
Mm.
And then they'll be the one to project manage like your creative projects or your bookkeeping with those other virtual assistants in the company so that it's still nice and easy for you just talking to your head or main VA.
Yeah, and if your agency does that you engage does want you to have like interaction with all of the different team
Mhm,
members, then ask them if you could have one person who becomes your point of contact and they become the project manager to make sure that everything is done across the other team members, because you don't really want to be needing to communicate with all of the different people. So yeah, make sure that you get them to give you one point of contact to make it easier.
mm. What about streamlining your business? I mean, we intro this podcast and talk about business owners that are wanting to streamline their business.
Hmm. Yeah.
That's
By hiring a virtual assistant, what you get the benefit of is them having multiple clients and doing work across different kind of industries or different businesses, where they actually come with so much knowledge
Mhm,
on really great ways to do things and tools to implement to speed things up. And a virtual assistant, because they are 100% productive and wanting to give you really good value for, what you're engaging them for. Like, let's say it's a 40-hour service plan a month. They want to be able to
mhm,
deliver really high quality work and give you great value, which means that they're going to find ways to do things really efficiently,
mhm.
automate some things, streamline some things, so that it's easier for them and that you're getting great value. So they know how businesses work. They haven't just like they're not just working for one business, they're working for multiple business. That brings a whole lot of knowledge and efficiencies that they can implement and proactively suggest for you.
Yeah, exactly right. Cool. And continuity of service. Now, this one is quite big, with employees. Again, you have that risk of sick leave. You're always going to have that. But when you have an employee on leave, that's your responsibility usually to make sure that you can cover that work.
Mhm.
Whereas a VA will often come with a backup VA, and they are likely documenting all of the processes that they're doing for you and your business so that they're sort of creating this training or instruction manual as they go, that anyone could actually then jump in and do those tasks in that virtual assistant agency and continue continuity of service. If you actually end up being so big that you outgrow this virtual assistant, you then have that as a training manual for whoever you do hire as a full-time employee in the end.
Let's talk about this because you said it's likely that they are documenting every process. And I would say that the very best virtual assistant
Yeah.
agencies and freelancers are documenting all of the processes, but not everyone does.
Yeah.
So make sure that when you do hire a virtual assistant, that you ask them about how they keep track of everything
Mhm.
that they're doing for you and whether they document the processes or not, or how they document the processes, because you want them to make sure you want them to have that as a priority in
Yeah.
how they deliver the service to you. It is hugely valuable when they document everything that they do and all of the processes, because you want that continuity of service. Someone else to step in from the agency, if you hire an agency, to be able to do that work when the VA is on leave, or to then have that you could quickly and easily hire a different virtual assistant if it's not
Mm.
working out, or hire an employee, like Tisha says, if you outgrow your virtual assistant. So make sure that this is a really key focus of the company that you do hire. They have to be documenting everything.
Mhm. Yeah. Now, we also know that there are people out there that hiring a virtual assistant is not actually right for. That's not the right option for some people.
Mhm.
So, say you actually need someone physically there in your office, maybe greeting customers or like an actual physical receptionist, if that's really, really important to your business, then it's kind of a no brainer that a virtual assistant is probably not going to work for your business because, surprise,
Mhm.
surprise, they are virtual.
Yeah, I mean, hiring a virtual assistant is definitely not right for every business owner, especially those business owners who, I'm going to say, can't or won't make the time to provide the virtual assistant with the answers and the training that they'll need.
Mhm.
If you don't invest the time up front and get that virtual assistant off to a great start and then be available to give them the information that they need, then it is not going to work.
Yeah.
The relationship, the tasks, the whole thing is going to fall apart because you haven't invested the time into that virtual assistant. They are not mind readers.
Yeah.
They will just be able to come in and pick everything up without any information from you or any time in training with you. You're not going to be training them on exactly how to do all of the tasks, but they need to be shown the back end of your business,
Yeah.
like what you're thinking, what you currently do, what you want done better, etc. There
Mhm.
needs to be an investment in time. So if you're not willing to do that, do not hire a virtual assistant.
So that's kind of, I guess, one end of it, the sort of chuck everything and run. But then there's also the other end of it, which is that you're actually not ready to let go of control in your business, that you find it really hard to let go, or if you're actually a micromanager, it's not going to work well.
Mm-mm, definitely not. Yeah. The other um, kind of issue that you could have if you were thinking about hiring a virtual assistant is if you're not willing to move from your paper-based
Mm.
business operations and move it into the cloud and have everything online, then you are not going to be able to benefit from a virtual assistant.
No. So yeah, at the end of the day, your virtual assistant is virtual. So there will still be issues if you need any of that sort of physical touch, whether it's
Hmm.
greeting people or paper or whatever it is. So, thank you very much for listening to episode 4 of the Get Savvy podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. And if you did, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. If you are ready to hire a virtual assistant from an award winning company, then go and check out strictlysavvy.co.nz.